Shane, thank you very much for joining me on the show, bro. It's absolutely awesome to have you here, man.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's always interesting for me to be able to talk to coaches that are also athletes, because I think it gives a really, really interesting insight into their coaching styles and their development. But I want to kind of start off looking at like your kind of introduction into S&C. Where did that really begin for you? Was that something that was career based from the beginning? Was this an opportunity that was kind of presented to you and you're like, this is kind of cool and it means I don't have to work in like a fucking office for the rest of my life? Like, where did that kind of come from?
Well, to be honest, it just came from being a kid. I always watched I'm a big anime fan. I've always watched Dragon Ball Z, Abridged, whatever. And they're just jacked. And I was a big wrestling. Still a big wrestling fan. Love the WWF, WWE, WCW, all the indie scene stuff. And I just grew up watching jacked fucking men, strangely, and just always wanted to be big. So when I was 16, my mum she knew the gym manager. He's actually a good friend of mine now, Ben France. He managed to sneak me a gym membership at the commercial gym at 16 when you had to be 17 to join. So my introduction to the gym was, I was very young. I know nowadays it's kind of common to have younger people join the gym and they have like junior memberships and stuff. But back then you just couldn't get a membership unless you're 17, 18. So I was the youngest guy in the gym and I was just seeing all these guys and just obsessed with getting bigger. And I ended up getting offered a job off Ben at the same gym. So I told my mum and my dad I'm leaving sixth form and I'm going to be a gym instructor and I'm going to do this and that. And yeah, that's kind of literally how it started. It was Ben that got me into strength training as well, because after I was working at the gym, Ben was started getting involved in Strongman. It literally went like once and was like, I did this Strongman thing last week. Do you want to come try it as well? And that was literally it. I then started getting interested in the strength and conditioning side of the world. I got kind of introduced to it through the people I met through Strongman, and it's going to snowball from there.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you say that, because like the whole kind of the scenario where like, oh hey mum, I'm dropping out of education and I'm gonna go and teach people how to bench press properly for a living. Like, one, how was that conversation? Because that has to be like one of the hardest things ever, just to kind of like see that look in your parents' eyes to be like, I know you thought I was gonna kind of go down this route, but nah, fuck that, this is what I want to do.
Well, it's a strange one really, because I had proper pushy parents. So from like 2 or 3 years old, I was doing kickboxing 3 days a week, karate 2 days a week, I was swimming 3 days a week. I used to do just everything. Like, I'm pretty sure they just wanted me out of the house, to be honest with you. But I've always had a weird, obsessive, blunt personality and I've always never found it hard to just say something that I feel.
I can believe that.
Me telling my mum that, yeah, if it was out of the blue, probably she would have been shocked. But I did stuff like my whole life, you know what I mean? Just said, Mum, I'm not doing this anymore, I don't want to. Or, Mum, I want to do this. And she was like, okay, so it went fine. And she was like, the thing is, not toot me on horn, I'm a clever bloke and I look at things differently to most people. My mind works in slightly different ways and I've got very good retention of information and stuff. So she knew I was going to be fine. She knew that. She's not an idiot. So she's just like, yeah, whatever. And that's kind of always been the case with my parents. Have always been kind of, even if it sounds stupid, they're like, right, okay, whatever, let's help him do this. And yeah, it wasn't that bad, to be honest with you. I can see why it sounds bad, but my whole upbringing was kind of, they knew I was a good athlete. They knew I was going to be, that's why my mum got me the gym membership at 16, because she knew I wanted to go to the gym. Because I was upstairs in my attic bench pressing weights and stuff from like 13 and constantly doing pull-ups on the little pull-up bar between my door frame and stuff. So, she kind of knew I was going to fall in love with it.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like you said, it's been ingrained in you from an early age. But it's really interesting that you speak about those different things, because it's like we've had Matt Wedding on the show before and kind of spoken about like the foundational structure of like long-term athlete development from like a child age in terms of like the stages of learning that you'll go through in terms of with your body. But like what you've been forced to go through is like such a tremendous amount of physical development at such a young age, is that without knowing it, you had like this fantastic base of athleticism, which, I mean, you probably could have taken that into most sports. Do you know what I mean? In terms of like that foundation that you had. So the fact that you just went down into strength training and strength sports, it's like, wow, like you bring lots of different elements to the table, which I think is really interesting about your training style and just you as an athlete anyway.
Yeah, because for me it was like the proprioception side of stuff. So like picking up movement patterns, like from doing, I did jiu-jitsu as well. Actually, I did so much fucking shit. They used to just do all the stuff all the time. I was pretty good at it as well. I was like under 16s full contact kumite, they used to call it, champion from 12, 13, 14, 15 and 16. So I won it like 4 years in a row. I was quite a good little fighter actually when I was younger, but them days have passed me. I'll tear a pec if I throw a hook now. But you know, it's I just pick up movement patterns really easily. Like if someone said to do a deadlift, they demonstrated a deadlift, I just did a deadlift perfectly. Same with the high bar back squat and just everything. I picked up stuff really well because I'd been through so many different planes of motion and so many movement patterns, and kind of subconsciously learned how to lift really well without knowing. But like kickboxing and stuff, they make you warm up with like 50 press ups, and you'd cool down with 100 press ups, and you know it's a lot of work really when you think about it from a young age. You're progressive overloading by growing, and you know, it just racks up to, like I bench pressed 105 kilo my first ever bench press time in the gym, and squatted 140. 16. So I benched 105, squatted 140, and deadlifted 140 in my first time I tried. So I built this pretty decent base of strength from just those sports. So yeah, it definitely carried over into. I think, like you say, I could have done anything. And part of me, you know, wishes, because there was this period of time in my life from 19 to 20 where I was really unsure whether to go all in on strength training or all in on MMA. And sometimes that's the only decision where I think I sometimes wish I did the MMA thing sometimes. But apart from that, I'm pretty happy with everything else. But apart from that one thing, sometimes I wish I'd have tried MMA.
I don't know, bro. The CTE is pretty fucking bad, man.
But I was training it by accident for so long that, you know, people train all the sports now from when they're a kid to get good at it. But back then it was like boxers that have done a bit of wrestling or a bit of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's like the early stages of the UFC where you had like guys that were just like strict single disciplines, whereas now it's just like everyone does BJJ. You're like, you know that this is just like the foundational thing now.
Yeah, so it's kind of like sometimes I did wish that, just because I followed MMA for a long time. I'm a massive fan of MMA. My first ever fight I watched was Nogueira versus Bob Sapp in Pride. And Bob Sapp, I don't even know him, but he's this jacked, massive 305-pound black guy. And Nogueira is this skinny Brazilian jiu-jitsu fellow. Well, he's not skinny, but compared to Bob Sapp, he's getting slung around like a rag doll. And then gets, I think he got triangle choked or something. And I always remember, as soon as I watched that fight, in my head, I called it real wrestling. That's what I was calling it, real wrestling. And I said, what is real wrestling?
That's so funny. So you took that turn. You're like, okay, right, I'm gonna leave this behind, and I'm going down the full strength training route.
Yeah,
at that stage, what was that like, going all in?
Sports, yeah.
So in terms of like actually going all in, like in terms of what you were saying, what were you doing differently? You're now just leaving all the MMA training out. You're solely focusing on this. Is this like the kind of like learning and development stage of like you as a coach now, in terms of like learning about the methodologies, learning about the different training cycles and systems? When did that kind of come into play?
So probably, I mean, I was always reading from 16 to, well, till now. You know, I've always been reading stuff. But I kind of got on the kind of like physiology side of stuff. I kind of didn't delve into that. I was kind of reading in the wrong places when I was younger. I was reading like forums and, you know, stuff like that, and just people's opinion on things. And
it's all anecdotal stuff.
Yeah, just the wrong info, really.
Yeah.
And then I started getting to my first strongman comp, I qualified to England Strongest Man under 90s. And then I came 8th for England Strongest Man under 90. And it was the first time in my life that I didn't do well at something athletically, and it fucking pissed me right off. I was just I never lost a fight the whole time I was kickboxing, karate, and never lost the jiu-jitsu, never lost rolling, never, even in swimming. I was supposed to go on one of the fucking Olympic trial teams when I was young, and I told them I fucking hated swimming. I was like, I don't want to swim. I remember crying to them, I don't want to swim. It's shite. So I've always been good at stuff. And I hated coming 8th. It was it haunted me. And I thought I need to get better here. And that's when I just started getting proper obsessive and reading more in depth. And I wanted to I decided all the people I'm learning off, all the people that are telling me this stuff, I don't know what the hell they're on about. And it was when at that England's I met Tom Hibbert. And I met Tommy Ewell, who's, don't know if you know Tommy, but I don't know what he does now. He was head of British weightlifting a year or two ago. Amazing weightlifter. He was in the Commonwealth Games, 200 clean and jerk at 105, Scottish guy.
Nice.
Just these guys that obviously had this strength and conditioning background.
Yeah.
And they started telling me stuff I remember seeing them warm up with bands around the hips and doing hip distractions and all this stuff. And I was like, what the fuck's all this? It was this new world. And then I was like, oh my God, I've been learning off all these idiots. And then these guys are coming up and they just know stuff about the body. And then I realized, right, I need to know my anatomy. I need to know this. I need to know that. And I just delved into it more and thought, I'm going to make myself the best I can be. And that's where it came from. That's where the coach side came. The coaching side came from. I wanted to coach myself to not come 8th because it pissed me off. And when I get my head on something and my brain focused on something, I'm proper obsessive. I'll just read for fucking 6 days straight if I need to, and just zone in on it. And that's kind of just what I did. And then I did my level 3 personal training, learned quite a little bit off there with anatomy and stuff. Did my level 4, did an open uni strength and conditioning qualification. And then since then I've just been, going different seminars, learning off different people. Tom Hibbert, I always respect Tom. I think he is absolutely class for educating coaches and building up strength and conditioning clients. Broderick Chavez as well. Team Evil GSP, I don't know if you follow him. Learn a lot off him and Yuri Scribans. Andrew Triana from the Performance Vibe is an amazing coach and guy. Learned so much off him. So that's kind of how it went. It just steamrolled from there. Me wanting to get better myself, and then realizing that I can apply that to other people. And yeah, that was it.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that, especially I love the fact that it wasn't the traditional route in the sense of you kind of knew that you were going down this route. You went to university specifically for strength and conditioning and whatever. This was something that you kind of got onto slightly later. Now that's really interesting that obviously the open university course, is that a shorter duration than 3 years? It's only a couple of years, is it?
To be honest, I can't remember, to be honest with you. I think it might be about 2 or 3 years, yeah, something like that.
Okay, cool. Now, yeah, it's obviously interesting then, because I think it gives you a different outlook when you haven't necessarily just gone straight into it. This is something that you've come into. It's almost like you're approaching it with fresh eyes. You get to see it in a slightly different way. So how did you find the whole experience of kind of going from understanding a decent amount, understanding the function, understanding training, what it does, how to kind of elicit a response, to then being okay, here's all these force projection graphs and bar speed and all these crazy different concepts that are being introduced to you. How did that then change and influence you as an athlete?
It did, and it didn't, because my whole training system that I utilize now, my whole kind of philosophy on it is that it's a very basic, simple thing that we can put lots of fancy words and graphs to and make extremely complicated. And we can juggle words around and make things sound amazing or make them sound shit. But my application of strength conditioning is for strongman and powerlifting. I don't care about footballers or fucking people producing force laterally or, changing direction. I don't care about that. I care about this. So there was a lot of stuff I was learning. I couldn't, because I can only switch my brain on to stuff I can apply to myself.
Yes.
Because as much as I'm learning to be better at coaching, I'm also mainly a selfish bastard and learning so I can make myself stronger. So if somebody's talking about something in a lecture, or they're fucking giving me whatever, if it's not relevant to me, I do not retain that information, like, at all. So that's why I kind of don't say I'm a strength and conditioning coach. I say I'm a strongman coach, because all the jargon and bullshit that I truly believe you don't have to apply to strongman. I just don't use it or quote it or even remember a lot of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you say that, because I think then, like, the way that you approach strongman training now, in terms of like what was kind of like traditionally strongman training, which is like a lot of just bullshit, heavy, static, powerful stuff, you know, these big barrel guys, whereas you've come at it with this really interesting concept of like actual athletic development. Like I feel like that's a really, really interesting balance you got going on there.
Yeah, but that came from more me looking at stuff, and I'm only like 5'7", and back then when I was doing it, I mean, I'm a bigger guy now that I'm on the old special supplements. I'm a bigger dude, but back in the day, I was a little lad. You know what I mean? I'm 80 fucking kilos, and people are like, "Do this, rest it here, do that," and I'm like, I don't have the frame to do that. So like, just pick it up or whatever. Just pick it up. That times people said that to me about stone. Just pick it up. So I had to step back and look at it and break it down. And I think, to me, strongman is looked at as this big mongy sport where people lift odd objects and stuff. But I see the beauty in the odd objects. I see these like lines appear where I can produce the most force if I put the odd object this way, and I put my feet here and my hips here and my shoulders here, and I create this like structure in my brain that I can visualize, and I go, that's where I can produce the most force. So then I put myself there and do it, and to me it's like a real nice, beautiful expression of strength rather than a big mongy. Just pick it up. That's how I look at sandbags and stones and stuff. It's a bit weird, but then when you take that into a coaching perspective, you can kind of learn to, like, this guy's got different femur length, different this, different that.
Yeah.
You know, if we put you here and do this, you'll produce the most force. And then the more people you work with, the more experience you get with different body types, etc. And then you can just end up, like, I can just see someone and go, well, pick that up like this and it'll be easy. Oh yeah, thanks, Shane. It's, you know, and then to me, it's like simple now.
But then you still seem like a wizard to that person.
Yeah, but to me, I'm just like, I just see it now. It's just like, there, we'll just do that. It's come with a lot of experience and a lot of breaking stuff down, and yeah, I just think it's fun. But yeah, I do look at it in a bit of a different way to most people. Like, people look at a sandbag and they see a sandbag, whereas I see like where I can put my power and where, like, how will the object move? Because sandbag moves. Like, if I grab here and here, the sandbag's going to do this. You know, it's going to bend and the force is going to change slightly, and you know, how am I going to counteract that? And you know, you can get quite intricate with stuff like that. This is stuff that I've taught to Luke Richardson recently, because Luke Richardson, he had so much force, so much power, but he was unable to apply it. So all we've done recently is teach him to put himself in positions on stuff to actually express his strength properly. And then everyone thinks he's blown up in strength. And I'm like, we haven't even done the strength phase yet. You know what I mean? It's, so yeah, there's a lot more to strongman than just brute strength, in my opinion, and especially the athletes coming up now. I think that's going to start to become more. Well, it already is. Like, look at Klesiowski and stuff. They're technicians. You know, they're not just strong. They're technicians.
Yeah, but it's even testament to, obviously, like Alexei Novikov. Like, there are smaller athletes now that are having bigger impacts in these leagues that were traditionally run by these fucking humongous giants. And it's like, it's just going to show now that if you have that power and you have that explosive nature, and you are a technician enough to be able to find those grooves that work for you and your body and your frame, you can do some fucking crazy things. And I think that's just a testament to your style of training as well, and what you're doing in terms of, like I'm 6'8", I'm 130 kilos, and I will hands down say I'm not nowhere fucking close to being as strong as you, because I don't know how to influence.
Animal,
I don't know how to influence my body weight well enough because I haven't got to that stage of development, which you have. Like, you have such an understanding of how to utilize every part of your body weight in the best sense to elicit a response on that bar. So again, I think that's the other thing. Being a technician as you are, it just goes to prove that this shit works.
Yeah, it's just like the little analogy of the cup. Like, you have like a little cup, and if you're able to fill it up, you might be able to outperform someone who's got a big cup that's half full. Yeah, the bigger cup's going to have more strength potential, but if they don't know how to express it, it doesn't matter. You know, it is what it is.
Yeah, 100%. And I think kind of going back to what you're saying about your kind of obsession around like the sandbags and stuff, the way you talk about it, and it's really interesting because of course you have the background in like martial arts and bits and pieces, is it's kind of like, I always hear to like BJJ and stuff, is it's almost like live action chess with your body. And especially when you get around some of these really fucking awkward implements that are active in your hands, like a sandbag where it's constantly swaying and moving, you have that same kind of intricacy where it's a give and take of your body against the implement in whatever the particular environment is. So you almost do have the same kind of live action chess thing going on, which would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, so when you're lifting these odd objects, that's all done through the wrist. So if you're picking up an odd stone and you think to yourself, I'm going to grab it here, if the weight's slightly in front, it's going to tilt. So then your wrist can, you know, pull back to kind of fight it. And then you'll maybe shimmy your hand forward a bit while you're lifting it. This is all in a lap, you know. It can all happen in a split second. You've got to move your hand so that you balance the stone, so that when you lift it, it doesn't flip. And your fingers spreading your hands and being able to control through each separate finger the item. There's a lot that goes into doing stuff like that really quickly and efficiently. And it's easy to mess up as well. So that's why you've got to practice it. It's not just one of these things that I'll do on the day. That's why I get people to train sandbags and stones and odd stuff quite frequently, because it's one of those things that people tend to do it 4 weeks up to a comp. They'll like get the sandbag out, whereas I'm making my athletes do them every week, like all year round. I'm like, do you want to deadlift every week? Well, yeah. Well, sandbags and stones are just as common as deadlift, so you're going to deadlift and sandbag and stone every week as well. You know what I mean? Yeah,
well, it's a really interesting point that I was going to bring up, is that I think, especially with a concept such as strongman, where it is, yes, it is a strength sport, but it's so multi-dimensional and it's multifaceted in the sense of that a series of events every single event can require something completely different from your body and or your different energy systems. Like, training for it is quite interesting because you can have all these different things going on. So in terms of how do you like to approach your training, in the sense of how do you split event training with then like core gym lifts, so like what I refer to as your squat, bench, overhead press, deadlift, whatever it would be, and then the auxiliary exercise movements outside of that? How would you balance that?
Well,
because there's so much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the way I do it is, we've got to remember in strongman that there's probably, I don't know, maybe one, for an open athlete, there's maybe one comp a year with a squatting, and that's worlds. And only 50% of the athletes tend to do the squat, because it tends to be in the qualifier. So the other half will get a deadlift or whatever. So when you think about all of that, squat is such a non-priority lift in strongman. So first thing you got to do is set aside the squat and say, we're going to fit squatting somewhere, but there are other things that need to be prioritized. Whereas most coaches write a program and they put the squatting first, and then they try and fit everything else around the squat. But it should be the other way around. The squat should be the thing that like comes last. Also, I think most strongmen should probably be on a safety bar for the extra shoulder recovery and
save your elbows a bit for pressing.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I do believe that you need a squat in your program, but like I say, I just think it needs to be like, if you need to pull something back one week, pull back the squat. You know what I mean? Let that be your recovery modality instead of pulling back the events or something, because they're the things that are going to get you the points. So that's the first thing is make sure you don't prioritize the squat. And then depending on the level of athlete, they'll deadlift once or twice a week. I don't tend to stray over 2 times a week just because there's so much to fit in that I think you start taking away from other elements if you deadlift more than twice a week. But I definitely have most kind of mid-level athletes do 1 deadlift day and 1 deadlift assistance day. But if you're getting into like if you're like a 400 puller or something, definitely only 1 day a week deadlifts. And then the pressing, that's kind of like a figure it out on the fly kind of thing with the specific athlete, because some respond better to just purely overhead pressing. Others, the bench press and incline bench and stuff like that, definitely give them a better response in terms of the press strength. So I kind of figure that out as we go, but definitely 2 days a week pressing is my go-to, no matter the strength of the athlete. The only thing that will change is we might have a lower level athlete that maybe logs like 140 or something. Maybe he'll log twice a week, but a higher level athlete like 200 log, he'd log once, and then the next session would be all back supported stuff for recovery. So incline press or seated military or something like that. Just again, managing the load and recovery of the athlete. And then events wise, they would be in all year round and usually light for skill acquisition purposes. So there's my favorite protocol that most get in off seasons called heart shock, which is a jog, sprint, carry, which is 1 rep over 20 meters usually. So jog 20 meters, sprint 20 meters, carry 20 meters. That's 1 rep. And I'll try and build them up to 3 sets of 3 with 4 to 5 minutes rest. And the carry will be rotated. So they'll do a sandbag front carry, and then the next week maybe a keg. The next week maybe like a random odd object they've got, lying around that's awkward. And I get them up to that. That's my baseline strongman fitness level. So 3x3 heart shock with 4 to 5 minutes rest. If you can't do that, you're not fit enough to compete at a high level. So I'll start you off at like sets of 1 or 2 and slowly just linearly progress to that. And then I'll try and maintain that for the strongman fitness. So we're ticking off a couple of things there. We're ticking off front carries. We're ticking off our level of conditioning over 60 to 75 seconds of the event's run. And we're ticking off skill of sandbag, keg, and odd object carrying and loading. So that's like a fundamental thing I'll keep in. And then after that, the off-season style training for most athletes, I will rotate farmers and yoke every other week. So after usually I do like a squat and move session I'll do, and I'll make them do their light squats first so that they're a bit fatigued for the event, just because usually farmers walk and yoke are like mid-table on the event score. You never really do it first. So I was going to squat first, but like I say, the squats are the priority, the yoke and stuff is, so it's not like you're not going to kill them on the squats. And then rotate yoke and farmers every other week, and then I'll finish with a stone load. I make sure stone load is in every week, and again that's usually rotated. So I usually do, when I do yoke, I'll do lighter stone to high platform, and when I do farmers, I'll do heavier stone to a lower platform.
Okay, very, very cool. I love that. And you kind of brought up in there as well this kind of, there seems to be this ever ebbing and flowing debate about the kind of the bench press, overhead press, kind of what's giving us best bang for our buck. And it's really interesting when I've heard you speak about it before. Obviously, depending upon how the person's built, their structure is going to be very, very dependent upon how the carryover from bench to overhead would affect them. But traditionally, it seems that overhead has a greater carryover to bench than bench to overhead. But you've got guys that, like, I mean, he is a genetic freak, but we'll talk about him. Larry Wills coming across and then going straight into a log and putting up like, what was it, like 180? I mean, technique was all over the place. But
my take on it is, how good are you at bench? How much are you benching? Because, for example, I just did a bench press cycle myself. Got a 1 kilo bench PB, so it was only 1 kilo. I got 221, but then 3 days later, I decided I just woke up. I was like, I want to strict log something, and I hadn't touched the log in about 4 months. And I strict logged 150, which is 5 kilo under my best ever, which took like 6 months of purely peaking the strict log to get 155. And I just walked in and did it off a bench peak. And then the week after, I did the fastest 145 strict log I've ever done. and then if I hurt my back cleaning it, but if I hadn't hurt my back, I guarantee you I'd have stripped to 160. So for me, this is why I'm on the fence with this argument. Is I completely understand it, but for me, bench press increases my strip log massively. And Luke Richardson, for example, we peaked his incline bench, then transitioned to a strip log phase, and he strip logged his push press log max. So anecdotally, for some people, they just respond really well to it. Others, you could put 30 kilo on the bench and the log doesn't move. But to me, that's more of a sign of your skill acquisition on the log isn't very good. Like if you're not very good technically on the log and all you improve is your chest, shoulder and tricep strength, you're still not very good at the log. So can you express the new strength you've built? Maybe not. So to me, it's kind of like definitely I adjust on the fly and see what's going on kind of thing. And some athletes, some guys just love strongman and they just don't have that kind of proprioception and that ability to be able to, dip with a neutral sort of vertical torso and explode all the force through the log so it goes really high, really fast. Some guys just can't do that. And they just don't have the ability to. They don't have the skill. Because I've tried it with people before where I've just done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of reps. Doesn't matter what I do, they just can't do it. Like it just doesn't, their brain will not click with it. So for them, increasing their bench press, they're still going to be shit at push pressing the log. So we may as well spend more time push pressing the log and getting better at the specific lift. But when you talk about me and Luke are, very technically driven. We love building on the technique. If we do anything wrong, we always correct it on the next rep. So we are expressing our strength really well. So if we then build strength on the bench press, we probably will be able to transition it to a log PB as well. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And then also, again, it's one of those things because it does depend, because it's like, well, okay, if you traditionally have a slightly closer grip for your bench, then yeah, like your tricep development is going to go through the roof. And then of course you're going to have some form of carry across into being able to press a log overhead, because guess what? Triceps are involved in the movement. Do you know what I mean? Like a lot of people that work on raw tricep strength generally tend to see a half decent result or increase in overhead or log.
Like Hicksy for about 8 years straight, all he did was board press, close grip board press. I know because I fucking trained with him every Thursday, close grip board press. And he would close grip board press like 240 for sets of 5 and stuff. Animal at log. Animal.
Freak. Yeah.
Yeah, so if somebody said to Hicksy, your board press does not carry over to log, he doesn't matter who tells him. You could show him 500 studies and be like, this meta-analysis proves it doesn't work. He's going to say, I don't care. It works for me.
Yeah, but again, like you're talking about that, but it's like Hicksy is like that perfect display of when you get like that crazy raw strength that then meets the technician. Like, I mean, I just love going back and watching his log videos because it's like fucking gorgeous, man. Like the smoothness and the timing of these things, and it's literally like copy and paste. You're like, it doesn't matter if it's 140 on the log, if it's 160, if it's 180, if it's 190, if it's 195, it just all looks like it moves at the exact same speed, exact same tempo, the exact same confidence. There's no change at all. When you're like, that is a man that has worked that skill a shit ton and has become so confident in it that it's just second nature. Do you know what I mean? It's just autonomous at that point.
I really believe this now. Me and Hicks and the Salt Air Strongman lads. Don't know if you've ever heard about SAS, Salt Air Strongman, but this is where me, Hicksy, Ben France, he came second at Masters Worlds, I think it was. He'll probably fucking kick me and say it's first. Every time I say on a podcast where he came, it's always wrong. I was about to say third, so I thought maybe it's second. So I'm saying second. But it's probably fucking first. He's good anyway, Ben, but he's about 300 years old now. He's the one who got me into Strongman. But we were the first people I heard of in Strongman that logged religiously every single week of the year, all year round for like 3. Most Strongmen would just press in the gym, and if they had log in a comp, they'd do a bit of log up to the comp. But me and Hicks basically built that technique. Because if you ever watch me and Hicks log, we're like the same thing, but I'm just like the small fucking
Yeah.
tiny version of it. Because we built that log technique together because we both had this same issue where we were like scratching our heads like, well, we could bench press this and strict press that, but why can't we clean this stupid log? Like, we just couldn't clean a log. And then we just started doing it twice a week. I used to go to on his fucking patio. It was all smashed up, and I'd be stood on this smashed patio doing bloody log. There's videos of it on YouTube, like 2010. I look like a right idiot. But we just used to do it all the time until, like you say, it became just like second nature. And then we started hitting PBs, and back then Hicksy hit his first 200. I hit the first 140 for an under 80 guy. And yeah, we just got, Paddy was back then as well. Paddy's trainers. Paddy had a 200 log. There was like 200 loggers in this gym that came from guys that just taught themselves.
That's fucking mental. That is absolutely absurd.
And then we just kind of like took that, you know, but when Salt Air kind of closed, we all branched off different gyms and shit, all went everywhere. But then we all carried on with that same thing. If you ever watch, you won't know Paddy, but if you ever see Paddy log, he's still an amazing logger now, but if you see Paddy log, it's the same as Hicks. It's like the same, because we just talked, we just learned together. Same elbow position, same cues. And it's just like 300 people doing the same movement. It's like a little game character that you just assigned the movement to. It's pretty weird.
So which character am I going to choose today? Bling, Hicksy, okay, and clean.
Yeah, no one's choosing the under 80 Shane one.
Hey, dude, I would 100% take your log. 1,000%. I would be over the fucking moon with your log, dude. 100%.
Yeah, I'm all right at log. I like log as well because when I'm in this powerlifting world, I see these powerlifters that can out total me in my weight class, and then I see them try a log now and again on the Instagram, and they do like 105, and I'm like, yeah, you fucking little bitch.
Stay in your lane.
Yeah, I'm like, this is my zone. I'm the one who does all the lifts. You stay over there.
I'm going to lift all of these really strange implements. You just do squat, bench, and deadlift all of the fucking time.
Just gives me an ego boost. So I go back to log and I'm like, yeah, I'm good at something.
Yeah, I mean, you just got like all these like countless records under your belts and trophies and shit, but that's what you need. You just need that. You need that reassurance. Just got to stroke the ego a little bit, man. Then we all feel better, right?
You got to do it, mate. Gotta do it.
So I'm interested in terms of for yourself and your training. One, how far in advance are you programming yourself, and are you looking forward? And two, are you setting goals at like whatever point of the year, quarterly, yearly, whatever it is, to say like, okay, this year I really fancy taking the deadlift up to X, or I really fancy taking my log up to Y, or my farmers to whatever. Like, do you come in it with an overall plan, or are you just like, I just want to see how far I can take this shit? Like, how do you do it for yourself, not a client, but for you, or does someone else help you with programming and stuff?
No, I used to get help with programming, but I don't need help with it. I just wanted the accountability, and then I ended up thinking like, I know how to program myself really well. Like, I can make myself strong as I want. So sometimes coaches were giving me stuff, and I just don't agree with it. And it's probably the fucking ego in me, but I just feel like I know more than you. It's hard to find someone I put trust in. The only people I put trust in is Andrew China and Tom Hibbert, and they're two expensive bastards. So it is also like, I could get this a little bit off them, but then I could also spend that money on food and other stuff, and what's going to actually give me. Yeah, you know, when you spend 200-300 quid a month on a coach, it's you can do a lot with that money. That might give. Do I need that accountability? Do I need to pay £300 for accountability just to learn and to learn a few bits, or what? So I tend to go with a coach when I've had a coach for like 3 or 4 years, but I tend to go with one that's more affordable, just because all I want them for is accountability. But then I was like, I'm not doing this program, mate. It's terrible. Like, I'll do my own shit.
Here's what I'm doing. I'm going to check in with you on this day. Just be ready for me.
Yeah, but the thing is, at the moment, for me, training is not the priority. My goal is, and has always been, the highest. I want to be the best under 90 lifter that has ever lived. I want a log like 180 to 190 or under 90. I want a deadlift in a suit like close to 400 or 400 in a comp. and I want to break the under 90 world record powerlifting total as well. And I would also like to snatch 160, clean and jerk 200. They're my goals. And I'm pretty close to them all. I mean, all I've got to do is pop 10, 15 kilo on everything. It's not like it's a million miles away. So that's my goal. And then I can retire happy. But I'm setting it up for like the next 6-7 years, because I think that you can peak your strength into your mid-30s. I don't think I'm in a rush for it, basically. So at the moment, it's more like I'm doing my business and I'm focusing on my work. So my work and my business is my number one priority. So I'm always going into training sessions like a bit tired. I've got stuff on my mind. So it's not the number one priority at the moment. But given my strength level, given that, like I say, I'm close to what I want to do. I'm just like one big push away. 1 year of like going all in, and I think I'll be there. But I need to get my business to a point that I can step back and let it kind of run itself, and get my head fully into training. So at the moment, you're kind of right on what you say when you said, do you focus on log or whatever? Yeah, I just pick one goal for like 8 weeks. I'll just be like, in the next 8 weeks, I want to do this. And I'll just focus on that. So maybe one session a week will be the priority. So if it's like, say I want to deadlift something, that deadlift session, like nothing matters apart from that deadlift session. So yeah, I'll put my all into that. My recovery will be on point. My eating, nutrition, hydration, everything will be on point. And I'll do well in those sessions and progress. But then the other 3 or 4 sessions a week, I'll just kind of be like fitting them in here and there. So recently I decided that I wanted to pull 340 on calibrated plates raw, which would have been a 10 kilo PB. I ended up hitting 330 for 1 rep, and I failed the second, but it was like a much faster 330 than when I first pulled it. But then I didn't end up getting the PB. It just didn't. I basically had a lot of fucking life stress and shite, and I came in and it just felt heavy as fuck. So I never actually got that one, but I was really happy with the 330 because I don't know if you know, recently I fucking mashed my hand, and I basically had full hand reconstruction surgery. So they told me I wouldn't deadlift again because of the pressure from my hand. So for me, getting back to my old PB after that was like, complete win. So I was happy as that. And then I decided I was going to log one. I wanted to log a PB, but again, I underestimated the hand on these peaks a little bit. I wanted to log a PB. My PB is 170, so I wanted to go for like 175, 180. I got to 165 that peak, but again, that was with my mashed hand, and it was holding me back quite a lot. So I was over the moon with 165, and then I decided I was going to bench a PB, and then I finally got a fucking all-time PB when I benched 221. So I was like, thank fuck, I can finally get a PB. So now decided I want to bench 230. So my next goal that I started yesterday is bench 230. So hopefully before March, 8 weeks ish time, I will bench 230. That's kind of like where I'm going.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring up the kind of points around injuries there, because like I know previously you had issues with your TFL and everything from the squat, wasn't it? Yeah, just got absolutely fucking mashed under, man. That was pretty gnarly. And then going through that with the hand, it's an interesting point to bring up, because when you injure yourself like that, I think even though you can get to a point where you convince yourself that you are like back to where you were, that there is always there's that psychological tweak at the back of the mind where it's like you're like 99% sure, but there's just always that little kind of earring of caution. Like I tore my PCL when I was like 15, 16. So I was training for England rugby at the time, like grade 2 tear. And it's like, dude, even to this day, like I'll get underneath the squat and I'm like, hey, like I can run a 340 yoke all day long in like 10 seconds. I'm good. I'm no issues whatsoever, no pain. But I get underneath the squat and I'm like, do you know what I mean? Like, how do you handle that? Because you've had some pretty fucking gnarly injuries, man. And kind of like coming back from those into what you're doing now. Like you're so saying, considering what happened with your hand, getting it under a log, like if anyone has been underneath a log, just being in that position and having that weight on your chest and in your hands, that's a lot of pressure, man.
Yeah, it's a weird one. The hand was a weird one, because with the hamstring, So what happened on the squat was my hamstring like tore, and then because of the way I fell after it took on the eccentric, I was only about 4 inches down. I don't know how it happened. I must have like loaded my hinge a bit more. Usually I load with ankle flexion and load into the knee wrap for dorsiflexion, but I just think I must have like shot my ass back and loaded my hinge, and I don't know why. When I look at the video, it doesn't seem that way, but I must have done something different because there was zero warning signs. Nothing. I squatted 350 like a speed rep. It was just, and then it just gone. So that was 2 years ago now. That's still it's still in the back of my mind now when I get under a squat. So I'm just what I do for that is I just kind of like, I bought a monolift and I got safety straps is what I did. So I'm just.
I was waiting until we bought it up with the whole fucking safety straps and the monolift. I was waiting until you got to the point where you could rant about that shit.
Yeah, fucking stupid cunts, man. But the safety straps and everything are just this thing of like, if they were there, I'd have popped my hamstring and then dumped it over with. But it turned into, I popped my hamstring, I fell to the right because my right hamstring went, so I shifted laterally. The barbell hit the spotter in the chest, pushed him over. The other spotter on the other side, the barbell went away from him, so he can't grab it.
What are you
so
going to do?
I just fell. Tore my adductor, my TFL, and there was loads of issues in my glute and my lower back because my head actually hit. I had a bruise on my forehead because my head, on the video, if you slow it down, as I'm falling, my toes raised and I'm like on my heel. And then my forehead smashed the top of my fucking Olympic shoe.
Which, if anyone tries to picture that in your head right now, just think about how fucking crazy that image is. Like someone folded in half to a point at which you can do that, and then add the weight of the fucking bath being thrown about too. Like that's how you walked away. Like, walked away from that, but like, holy shit.
Yeah, it was, but that's why it's so. That's why I need the safety straps because, and I actually said to Emma in the BPU, she asked me if I was coming back. I said, I'm never squatting in your competition again. I'll go to the GPC because that could have been bad just because you don't have safety straps. And I'm like, why don't you have? I cannot understand why they don't have safety straps. And he said to me, oh, somebody trapped their hand in the safety straps. I said, because he's an idiot. I was like, he's an idiot. If he trapped his hand, he's an idiot because he put his hand in the wrong place. He put his hand through the strap so that if he failed, it gets crushed. Don't put your hand through the strap. Don't take the strap away from everyone so that you've got to die if you fail. It just seems a bit ridiculous to me.
Yeah,
but
that doesn't seem right.
Yeah, but they won't use straps anyway, so I can't let in that fed. But the getting under the squat, definitely, even now, it's very strange because if I put a bar low bar and wraps, it's like this massive fucking guy on my shoulder going, "You're gonna die, and I'm like, "Fuck off, you little cunt." But then if I'm on a safety bar, you could put 300 kilo on a safety bar and tell me to do a slow eccentric. I'll fucking do it. It doesn't even bother me because it's like the changing barbell and it's probably weird. So it's still there, and yeah, I just literally, as I'm squatting and this little fella's telling me I'm gonna die, I'm just like, fuck off. And then that's how I get over it.
Well, it's interesting that you just said that because that totally makes sense though. If you believe that in terms of how you did it originally, if you are used to kind of working into the wraps more and having more break at the knee before shifting the hips back, then yeah, like quad dominance in a safety bar squat makes way more sense than if you then want to chuck wraps on and hit a low bar because, dude, you're just going to be lighting those hammies up, and that's just like. It's just like rolling the dice every time, isn't it? It's just like you just keep on poking at it, and you're like, will it go today?
I squat really vertical torso. Even when I'm low bar, I squat real quad dominant vertical torso. I don't hinge at all, and it's not even a low bar. It's like a med bar, to be honest with you. So it's like it's a strange one because like same thing. If I go high bar with the exact same torso position, I don't get the same feedback. It's a bit dodgy. I'm a bit like skeptical. But as soon as the bar goes low in sleeves, it's like even worse. But when I get wraps on, it's like my brain remembers the moment and goes, "I don't want you to go down, mate." It's a bit strange. But the The hand was completely different. The hand was a trauma injury, so it was like crushed, and a J hook went through my hand. You can see my scar there, my gammy little finger. So I've had that all reconstructed there, and on this side as well. So that was more like I dropped a bar on it and had a J hook go through it, but didn't really like bother me on the squat. You know what I mean? Because that was just my mistake. It's just an accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I never have, like when I'm squatting now, I never think I'm going to trap my hand, or I never worry about my hand. It was mainly more that, like when I was saying the hand was bothering me more than I thought, it was like I thought it was fine, but neurologically, like the connection between my nervous system and my forearm and my bicep and my lat, and just I wasn't able to contract properly. I've done a lot of neural flossing and stuff to help it, and yeah, I ended up getting a little bit of imbalances. I've sorted them all now, but like I said, these are just things that I thought it was okay, but then I realised it wasn't. And on the log and stuff, like when I was picking it up, sometimes my hand would I couldn't pick the log up. Like I didn't have the grip strength to pick the log up. So, or when I'm cleaning the log and I'm squeezing my lats, my left side will just go limp because it's like it just turned off. There's just things like that happening. And also there was a lot of scar tissue on the palm of my hand, so it hurt to press and stuff, but I just kind of kept forcing it in, and I've literally got a dent in my scar tissue now where a bar goes. It's quite funny because it's like this perfect shelf for a barbell. It feels better than it used to, actually.
So how long are you post-surgery now on that hand?
About 5 months.
So do you do any like just like light scraping or anything in the hand just to break down some of that scar tissue?
By light scraping, if you mean unrack 200 kilo bench a couple of times a week.
No, man, no. I mean like actually getting some actual like self-myofascial release in there.
No. When I first did the injury, I paid for a physio twice a week for the first 3 months. So I had loads of massage on both sides of the hand where the scarring is.
Sweet.
And yeah, that's it really. The first 3 months of after the injury. So it's been about 8 weeks since I've had anything. But like I say, now it's 100% a normal hand. Like it's fine. Like do everything. The only thing I've got is this gammy finger. I can't straighten my little finger. So that's that. But that's for life now. So yeah. No karate chops. So I say to Shannon, I was like, the only thing I can't do is a karate chop ever again. I said, just fucking that. It doesn't work, does it? It's not the same thing.
No, doesn't quite have the same impact. Now, because you've gone through all of these sorts of things, so like I think it's interesting to kind of bring it up. So like kind of spoke about the fact like jacked up my knee, I've torn my pec major pretty much directly in half through the belly of the tissue, so I've pretty much lost an entire pec there. Like when you go through these like bigger injuries as a coach, I think it's really interesting because then you almost become like so much more knowledgeable about those issues and injuries because you've sustained it and you've had to go through the recovery process and you have to figure out what works to kind of get you back to where you were, that then you're now in this kind of like power position as a coach because you're like, okay, I know how to approach these situations now or how to avoid ever getting into them. Like, do you feel like now you're in a better position as a coach having gone through those injuries because you know how to program and avoid and work around them better?
Plus, no. I don't believe any of my injuries have ever come from programming. I just believe. I mean, I've had 2 major injuries. One, I re-racked a barbell and it was on a shit stand in lockdown and it fell over and I got my hand stuck. The other one, I was in a competition squatting 4 times body weight. So there's just stuff that can happen in strength training.
Yeah, not necessarily around the programming in terms of like leading up to it, but in terms of the programming post injury. Sorry, I probably should have cleared that up a little bit more.
Yeah,
but in terms of like the restoration, rehabilitation.
I could, I guess, but I don't delve. I'm not an injury rehab guy. Come to me when you're not injured. That's like I say, I stay in my lane. I ain't a physio and osteo. I don't want to be. Go to a physio osteo. They can tell me what to do with the program, I'll do it. But I don't put myself in a position of power that I'm not qualified to. I think that's one of my pet gripes with coaches. Step out of the lane far too much. And I don't care if you've injured your hamstring. You ain't done 6-7 years at uni and earned the right to tell people what to do on that subject. So I stay, as soon as someone says it to me, I'm like, you take some BBC 157. That's my advice. Take some BBC 157. If it heals up your injury, we'll keep on training. If it doesn't, go see a specialist. Go see Mofo Body Mechanic. That's who you should see. That's what
I say. I love that. That's a very, very interesting view on it. No, but like that, I totally get that. Like, if you feel confident in that area, why would you actively venture out of it to try and do it? But it's testament to then you as a coach in the sense of like, okay, I'm confident with this. I know what the fuck I'm doing. If we've got all of these different factors that I can't control, then that's why you need to have that. Like, I know you've spoken about it before with like nutrition and stuff. Like, you're not there going to be giving out like super detailed like nutritional programming and macros and breakdowns, and you need this, and this.
Yeah.
You're like, you sort it out. If you want to get bigger, eat a little bit fucking more, eat a little bit more protein. Like, in this day and age, like, it's almost common sense, you know what I mean? Like, you can pretty much figure out all of this shit out for free online. It's not groundbreaking.
Yeah, that's just what I say to people. Is like with the injury thing. If they have a little minor injury, we got to work around it. Yeah, of course, I'm just going to program around it. But if somebody blows the hamstring off the leg, I ain't touching their program. You know what I mean? That is not. If you got a little pec twinge or your external rotation is a bit, yeah, of course. I wasn't meaning like that. But I'm on about if someone tears a pec, someone tears a hamstring, someone goes through full hand reconstruction. I'm not going to be like, I know what to do. I've done it myself. Come to me. No, listen to your hand surgeon. You know what I mean? Same with nutrition. Like, I probably know more about nutrition than most of the nutrition coaches out there because I love it. But I don't sell my service as a nutritionist because I don't actually have any qualifications in it. I've just read a load of shite. You know what I mean? It's so I wouldn't charge them. I send my clients diet plans because I say, look, your diet's absolutely diabolical, so eat this, please, because it's 10 times better than what you're on. But I say to them, don't ask me for another one. Like, that's what you're getting. You want another diet plan? Speak to Uris. Speak to somebody else. Because my lane is the strength programming and getting people strong and good at strongman and powerlifting. And I'm really set on. I do not venture out of that ever. Like I say, if someone's got a pec niggle and we've got to adjust the pressing stuff, but I can still train the squat and dead, great, I'll do that. If they're so fucked that every single part of the program is having to be adjusted, I'll just say, you don't need a strength coach, you need a rehab specialist. So go to them.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a really interesting view to have because there are a lot of people out there that will try to kind of wriggle around it to a point of which it's a case of, well, that person isn't actually necessarily getting better in any field and they're not getting any benefit out of it. And I think that you're true in what you're saying, that there are a lot of people that are out there that will like kind of go and say that they are kind of a specialist on X field and actually really have no background on it because, we live in this day and age where any motherfucker can open this and get access to, like you said, different articles and claim to know everything at a moment's notice. So the fact that you, even as a coach that understands that you can actually probably benefit them and help them, to stand back and be like, you're like, I'm not all about that.
Yeah, well,
I think that's really interesting.
I'm busy enough doing my strength shit. I can't do everyone's nutrition as well. You know what I mean? If you fucking pay me double, I'll do it. But yeah, you know what I mean? It's I just don't have time for it, and I don't want to. I don't enjoy it. Like I said, I could tell you about nutrition and write people diet plans, but I think it's just monotonous, boring. Like, I just don't enjoy it at all. Getting somebody to a crazy level of strength, mastering weird movements in strongman, I love it. It gets me hard, you know what I mean? And I don't wake up and think about how many pieces of fruit I'm going to tell my client to eat and get stiff. I don't think that. I wake up and I think, who's max deading today? Who's max squatting? Wonder what song's going to be playing when people are lifting tonight? I wonder what's going to get me hard. That's what I wake up for. So people ask me about nutrition and injuries. I'm like, I don't care about rehabbing your shoulder enough to actually ask you to pay me for it. Like, even if you offered me 300 quid to do it, I probably wouldn't, because I just don't want to. So that's why I just don't venture into it. And I'm not money grabbing. Like, I'm pretty content, I'm pretty happy with what I'm doing. If someone has to cancel because they're injured, I'm not going to pretend I can rehab them just so I keep a debit each month. It's, that's unprofessional in my opinion. And I just wouldn't do that. It's just not me. Like I say, I'm quite blunt. I just fucking say what I think, and that's it.
No, but I think it's important because, especially like, and I've spoken about on this show like a fucking 1,000 times, it seems like now, that with the joys of social media is that, like you have the snakes and the fakes, and it isn't until you come across a coach such as yourself, or other people that are in the industry that are also very, very blunt, and to the point that you're like, I totally respect this person because I believe everything that's coming out of their fucking mouth, because they are 100% true to themselves and what they believe in, and they express it in a very, very simple way for everyone to understand. And it's like, well, actually, I 100% respect that way more than someone else that's going to hide behind a load of bullshit, a load of jargon, try and seem to make things more complicated than they are, so then they sound, hyper intelligent. It's like, no.
Yeah, this is the thing online, right? It's something that gets me online that I hate, right? Is people can go online and read an article and learn all these big words and learn all these things and learn about a specific subject for like an hour. And then they can go, I'm going to make a video on this. And they all they do is they relay the information they've just read. Zero retention of it. Don't understand anything about it, but they sound really smart. And then you hire them and you realize they're just a fucking idiot. And there's a lot of that about there in strongman coaching. And that's why I put out the type of information I do, is because I hate people that do 3 novice comps and then offer online coaching, because it rattles me, because I've spent so much money, so many hours and so much time and effort getting good at this fucking job, that some whopper can do 2 novice comps and just change his Insta bio, and now he's got the same job as me. Like, bullshit. That should be illegal. That should be illegal in my opinion. But it's not. It's widely done. Fucking every man and his dog's a fucking coach. So it's it's something that you've got to be careful with in this day and age. Is, does this person understand the information he's relaying, or is he just relaying random shit he's read? And often it's the latter.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Well, like you said, it's so easy to do it in this day and age as well, that you've got people that don't even necessarily actually live in that space that are doing that. People that aren't actually PTs. Dude, the amount of like it's absolutely rife in bodybuilding. The amount of fucking coaches that aren't qualified in anything, and they're giving out nutritional advice and they're giving out training advice, and you're just like,
yeah, no, I don't understand.
Dieting into a show is dangerous,
dude. So dangerous. What the fuck? And you get like, man, the amount of fucking stories I've heard about kind of these dodgy cookie cutter coaches that are like water loading people, and you're like, do you understand that if you go through that cycle, you will fucking die? You're like, this. It's absolutely absurd that people of that ilk, of that stature on social media can be fucking supplying this stuff. I don't understand how it's legal.
Yeah, that's why it annoys me, is the fact that it's not. Like, I can't just turn myself into a doctor. You know what I mean? And just start fucking getting people around slamming out. Well, people do it. That's what online coaching people do. They just start zero knowledge or anything, and they're prescribing PEDs and diuretics and all these different things to people. And I'm like, well, you don't know anything about anything. Like, why? It should be illegal, but it's not. And that's why, unfortunately, a lot of people get suckered into dodgy, well, not dodgy, but you know what I mean, weird coaches that relay dangerous information. And I see it all the time, especially in strongman. Amount of lads come to me that are on so much gear, their eyeballs are out of their head, and I'm just like, mate, you need to tone stuff down a little bit. Oh, but my coach said this is what I should be on in my off season. Well, you're off season. I was like, what are you nuts?
Yeah, but then that like, I mean, that's also a testament to the fact that the coach is relying on not the coaching to do their fucking job. Do you know what I mean? They're relying on the bottle to do the job for them, which again, I think it's really interesting that you relay this information, because you go out there to say, yes, you can get this aid, but it's not going to fucking work by itself overnight. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have to have this training structure. You have to have this plan in place to be able to do it behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's just it's a weird subject, all this online coaching stuff, because there are some great guys out there putting out loads of information that's really good. But often online coaches come from being athletes first. So sometimes you have a coach who has come into it as a coach and he's got a small following, but amazing information, but nobody sees it. And then you get an athlete that gets quite a big following because of his athletic or her athletic, abilities, then turns into a coach and then has all these clients come to them quickly and loads of views and stuff and loads of work, when all they've done is just decided overnight, I am now a coach, pay me monthly. And it rattles me that is, a possibility that happens I've seen it a million times. And to be fair to some of them, I've slated some of them in the past, because the thing that pisses me off the most is when people do it and then 6 months later they fuck off.
Yeah.
But to be fair to some of them, they have stuck it out. People that I've slated in the past, years and years ago, because I've been online coaching since I was actually like 22. Before I took it full time, I used to do it as a bit of a hobby on the side.
Yeah.
So I've done online coaching a long time, and some of them stuck it out and they've done qualifications and learned stuff and got better and progressed as the years have gone on. And now they're good coaches, and now I would recommend them. But at the start, I'm thinking, you should have done that. Like, you started wrong. I still say they start wrong, because I know some of these guys personally. I say to them, you started wrong. You might have ended well, but at the start you're a bit ropey. And they'll all admit and go, yeah, I didn't know what I was doing back then, to be honest. But at least some of them do stick it out.
Yeah, but I think, I'm not going to fucking sit here and blow smoke up your ass, but I think that's why it's really important that we have guys like you out there on social media. And it's the same as some of the other guys and girls that I've had on this show, is that we need the truth speakers out there to cut through so much of this bullshit knowledge which is being fed and supplied and given to people. Because especially now, the younger generations are spending more and more time on here, but actually the younger generations now are actually at a point where they're more interested in the gym and training than they ever fucking were when, like, I was a kid. I'm 26 years old now. I know you're a little bit older than me, but you go back to when we were younger, and it was like the gym wasn't a cool thing like it is now. Like, fucking 15-year-old girls are getting Gymshark kits for their birthday. You're like, the fuck? That didn't happen when we were at school. Do you know what I mean? No one was getting fucking wrist wraps for their 16th birthday. Like, what's this all about?
Yeah, but this is why I feel blessed, because I think that, for me personally, I got lucky, right? I was online coaching at like 22, and I was learning off people like Tom Hibbett and stuff that were just so good. They just know so much. Like, Tom used to be friends with Paula Quinn, you know what I mean? He on the phone text Paula Quinn. I'm like, who the hell texts Paula Quinn? You know what I mean? So you just, I picked up so much great information, and then as social media came out and as stuff got more exposed and the gym became popular, my business was able to just like surf the wave and, build itself into what it is today, which MST, in the next 3 to 5 years, I guarantee you that we will just take over strongman programming in terms of like the entry level. Like, do you want to get good at strongman? You've just started strongman. Get on the MST bot, because the MST bot that we're building at the moment is just absolutely mad. And once we finally release it, it's going to be done soon. When we finally release it, all these coaches that I'm talking about, the little ones that do 2 knowledge comps and they're suddenly online qualified and they're charging £6 a month, I'm going to put all those cunts in the grave. They're going out of business, because MST bot for £25 a month is going to deliver 25 times the fucking service that any of them stupid motherfuckers will ever be able to deliver. So I'm going to raise the height of the standard of strongman coaching, so that if you cannot deliver more than this for 25 quid, if you can't give a better service than this, you're not going to do well in this business. So I'm going to dwittle out all those little fuckers by giving a product out there that's so cheap and accessible and with so much good information that it becomes impossible to basically dwittle down this coaching thing into just like, who the hell do I pick? Like, who do I choose as a coach? Everybody's a coach. Like, who the hell should I choose? It's really hard to choose. Well, it's not going to be a problem after December. There's going to be, you're going to go on MST bot, And then if you want the coach, you can go from MST bot to a coach. And if they provide less of the service than what you were getting, you're going to jump straight back on it because you'll know they're a fraud.
Yeah, man.
There's my rant. There's a rant for you.
Hey, we fucking love rants here, man. We're all about rants on this show. That's what I absolutely love. That's just raw passion right there, though. That's what I love.
Yeah, it's fucked me off for years, and I've never been in the financial and social, whatever you want to call it, with social media stuff, situation to be able to provide something to a lot of people. My followers, I've only got like 20k followers, but it's just all strongman, all passionate strongman coaches and strongman athletes that want the sport to succeed. And I really want to give something to the sport. I've always said this, I wanted to make this sport better. And the way I'm going to do it is through providing affordable but world-class coaching service that isn't just numbers, that is 2x8 on log. Fuck off. What is that for coaching? If your coach gives you a program and it says log 2x8 and that is the only text on log, sack them. It's shite. You know, I basically, MST bot is basically a fucking book. Like, there's like, when I say log press, there's like text, like bang, like fucking 400 words for just one exercise on one day. Because there's so much more to, like, if you say to somebody, do a bent over row, yeah, you get 10 people from 10 different areas of the country that have trained in 10 different environments. You say, do a bent over row. 10 people will do 10 different variations of bent over row. The bar path will be different. The hand width will be different. The elbow, where it tracks, whether it goes out or whether it goes back, or whatever they do, they'll have been taught something different. So if your coach just says bent over row 2x8, well, what type of bent over row? What's the goal of the bent over row? Is the goal hypertrophy? Is it neural? Do we want to be more hinged below the knee? Do we want to be upright and rowing so we're more trapped? There's a lot to like a simple little tiny exercise. And that's what fucks me off, is the low effort coaching that's just a bunch of numbers. Humans are not robots. They can't just be given a load of numbers and expect them to turn into freak athletes. They need direction and cues, and they need the proper direction and cues. And unless you, this is another thing with like strongman coaches that don't do strongman. If you don't understand the intricacies of a sandbag and a stone, down to its like the pure, like beautiful level of power transfer into that item, how the hell are you going to explain to someone how to do it? You can't. So fuck off. Get a good job. It really annoys me. It rattles me. And this is why we're really pushing hard to get this out. We're working with Mofo because, as well, all the rehab and prehab and movement preps, no one does that shit. They just tell you, like, go in the gym and deadlift day, 2x5 at 80%. Fuck off. It's shit. Movement preps, rehab, prehab, preparing yourself for the specific session, and then cues on your deadlift of how to perform it, what the goal of the session is and what the goal of the block is, and getting intricate in these details. That's where you separate a good coach from someone who doesn't know what's going on. And I'm real passionate, if you can't tell, about these shit coaches. It really fucks me off. I really think it should be illegal. It really drives me mad. It keeps me up at night, I tell you.
Yeah, but it's the, and like I've seen them before, and I remember like working in leisure centers where it's like exactly what you're saying. Like I remember a guy was like he charged like 60-70 quid for this program, and it was just like the most dog shit thing I'd ever seen. Like 5-6 exercises in a block, like not even, there was like no supersets, just straight like 5x5 on this, 4x10 on this, 3x12 on this, and you're like, what in the fuck? Like, someone has had to work so hard for that 70 pounds that you're just going to turn around and slap them in the face like that.
Yeah, this is why it annoys me, right? Because I've been there when I was a young lad working in that gym, and I had fucking, however much money a month I had. I think I had about 700 quid a month. I was only like part-time-ish. And I'd come home and I would find stuff online that I would be able to use to progress. And back then, when I was like fucking 18, 19, or whatever, it was just supplements. That was the only thing out there, really. There wasn't much programming, and you know what I mean. There wasn't. Yeah. I couldn't go online and buy an online coach back then. If it was, I'd have bought one. Trust me. But for me, I was on discount supplements. I was reading this fucking whatever it's called, Cell Drive by Farmer X, or whatever it's called, and you know, I'm just like, I need that. And then I'm like, Gaspari Super Pump. Oh, you've got to stack it with this fucking thing. And I'm like, I spend like 400 quid a month on supplements, and I'd have no money. I'd be fucking just wasting it all and not getting any results. And that's what I feel like these people are doing when they're paying some coaches. They're charging 80, 90 quid a month, and they're getting these programs that are written like that. And they're coming to me after, I charge a little bit more than I used to now. I'm at 150 a month just because basically I'm full. So I've kind of got a price that says you can pay that, I'll squeeze you in, but I can't really take any more. And that's kind of what that price is. But it's like people come to me and they pay that and they're really stretching themselves. And I'm looking at them like, and you've had a coach for a year, and this is what you've got. And they're like, yeah, they've invested over $1,000, 90 quid a month for a year. They've invested over $1,000 and they've received nothing in return. And then they get this program off me and they go, I can't believe this is what it's supposed to be like. And I was like, well, yeah, you should never, you should only get stuff like this. You know what I mean? You shouldn't be getting scammed.
It should be the standard, but it's not. But that is all like, it's a double-edged sword because yes, it's shit, but also it's fantastic because then when that person ventures across and they see what you have to offer, they're like, wow, this is incredible. This is what it should be like. So yes, it's wrong and it shouldn't happen. But at the same time, it also just goes to show how good of a coach you are compared to the vast majority of bullshit cookie cutter coaches that are out there, which unfortunately, the personal training, coaching, whatever the fuck you want to label it, that industry is full of them, like 80% plus of people that are just hopping online, getting a fucking qualification for like £200, going through multiple choice answers, not actually having to really learn anything about the human body, how it works, biomechanics, anything, and then going into a gym and then charging people £50 for a personal training session. And you're like, I learned absolutely nothing in that hour, and you've completely fucked my CNS, and my back is shagged, and my body feels worse than when I first walked in the room. And you're like, yeah, and you're paying for that privilege. Congratulations.
Yeah, because my whole thing with it is, like, my clients now that I've had long term, they're clever. Because my whole thing is as well, I want to educate the client. I don't want to have retard clients who don't understand anything. You know what I mean? Because once they understand stuff, they can help themselves and answer their own questions. And that builds loyalty as well. Because I've taught them that, even though they have a question that they can answer themselves now, they know I've taught them that. So they'll stay. So my client retention is one thing I'm very proud of. I don't lose clients. That's why I never have space, because I just do not lose clients. And unless something drastic comes up, and like lockdown and stuff, never lose clients. And they always come back because the education side of it, like, even just, here's a tip for some coaches if you're listening. Instead, when you write your deadlift program, just the first day, deadlift, 200 kilo, 4x5, whatever it is, just write underneath the reason why you're doing that first session. Teach them. It's because then when the client goes, what have you got today? 4x5 at 220. Why are you doing that? Well, my coach says. What's the point? Like, educate him. Yeah. We're doing this, mate, because we're just, even if you just write, we're going to do a real simple linear progression where we're going to add 5 kilo a week for the first 5 weeks, and we're going to call it an accumulation block for 4 weeks. Oh, an accumulation block. Oh, that's what that is. They don't need to know the intricate details of it, but they now know, like, if someone says, why are you doing that? Oh, it's the start of an accumulation block, mate. It's my first week. I'm adding 5 kilo a week for 5 weeks. That person now knows he's doing an accumulation block. He just said a big fancy word. And then the more you teach that client, put different bits in the program here and there. Next time you start a new phase, we're doing an isometric phase. The goal here is tendon strength and reinforcing positions at this point of the lift. That person is now learning stuff throughout the program. And then after 6-7 months of coaching him, he's probably going to be cleverer than the last coach he hired. Well, he'll probably put coach in his bio and start selling
Then you'll have to put him out of fucking business.
No, but it's what I mean. It's just, it's not hard to do. And that's why I think to myself, like, why don't people do that? And I think the reason is because they write 4x5 at 220. And if I ask that coach, so why have you done that? He'd probably be like, don't know. That's why they don't write it. So like, even on my assistants, I've got a program up here actually. Even on this assistants here, I've literally wrote fucking 5 lines on a rear foot elevated split squat about why they're doing it. Because I want them to know that don't just do your squats and then go home and skip your assistance. Your assistance has a fundamental place and it's there for a reason. And, you know, if I ever write a program and I put an exercise in, if I can't say to myself the reason why, then I shouldn't put the exercise in. You know what I mean? There's no point.
Say this all the time. The amount of times where you just comb over a program and you're like, okay, so why have you paired these two together? What kind of response are you trying to elicit here? Okay,
Yeah, exactly.
if you can't tell me, then what's the fucking point? That's just filler. You could have something that's actually doing something in that space, or they could not be overloading their body and they could be resting.
Exactly, mate. And it's mad because some coaches have, because I do help some coaches out and stuff and do some I'm not calling it mentoring. I don't really charge for it or anything. It's just like a bit of a side hobby that I just help a few close friends out really.
Yeah.
And they say, this is the program and the rest is fluff. And I'm like, well, the amount of times I've heard that, it's like it's kind of something that's taught, the word fluff, or you call it filler, fluff, whatever you want to call it. I'm like, there shouldn't be filler in a program, or there shouldn't be fluff. There should just be, and the way I break my assistants down with strongman coaching is I always have a shoulder stability focus. I always have a core focus, and unilateral work is fundamental. So that's how I break my assistants down: is unilateral deep knee flexion, shoulder stab, and core. Going through bracing, rotating, and concentric eccentric work on the core so that we get all different planes of motion, build a big, strong core. And then, yeah, if you break your assistance down like that, there isn't really any filler because that is your assistance. It's all got a reason. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's got the rest fluff, and I'm like, well, it's not fluff because this is shoulder stab, this is core, but you've kind of like got it all over the place. Let's lump it all together. You know, elicit a proper response, because if you do 2-3 sets of 10 rear delt raises at the end of a pressing session, you're not going to get any real alterations.
What was the fucking point?
Yeah, if you did rear delts, power raises, face pulls, and you start stacking them, I always teach you like building a wall. I always say, like, if your first exercise is like your first layer of bricks, and I always teach people, like, if you take too much rest, if you're like going for hypertrophy and assistance and shoulder stab, if you take too much rest between your exercises, you're just building the same layer of the wall every single time. Whereas we want to control the rest time, so we're increasing blood flow and mind muscle connection and contraction, all that bullshit. And we do 3, 4, 5 exercises in a row, or whatever the person can handle. And then we look to build volume and density with these exercise selections before we rotate it in a couple of, you know, in next block or whatever. So that's kind of like, I just don't think if you structure a program like that, there isn't really any filler or fluff, because you kind of end up like, oh, that looks like a bit too much anyway. Like, I don't really want to put anything extra in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. But that, I think, then just goes, it's just testament to you as a coach understanding that actually, especially in this, we don't just need to have a fucking delts and triceps day. Do you know what I mean? This isn't like bodybuilding.com. You know, it's like, we have this compound press, we have this isolation movement, we have this eccentric, we have this stabilization, we have this core response, because you know that on the day that all of those things are going to add together to produce the perfect log or the perfect axle, or do you know what I mean? Like, you have that foresight, and I absolutely love that, man. And again, that's just testament to you as a coach. Now, I love to end the podcast in the same way, because I think it's interesting to get everyone's point of view, especially someone as fucking blunt as you are. So this is going to be a good.
By the way, have we broke your record or not?
I don't actually know. I mean, I think we're like an hour and a half in, so I don't know if Tatus has got this, man.
I've got 3 more hours in me. I told you, I've got balls. I'll tell anyone that's done.
So I want you to imagine that you're stepping into a time machine. You're going back in time, and you get to spend a few moments with your younger self. You're like 10, 11, 12 years old. You've obviously gone through a lot so far to get to where you are. Your progression through business and as an athlete and as a human being has obviously been tremendous. So you get to spend a few moments with your younger self in that time and give them some information, you know, a mantra to live by, a way to live their life, something to help them get through all the shit you know that they've got to get through. What do you tell your younger self? What do you say to him?
I'm not going to tell you that, but I'm going to tell you something else.
Fantastic.
Which I know is a bit random, but genuinely, that there is my most recurring dream I ever have. And I'll tell you, because I've had that dream so many times that I've told myself a bazillion different things, and the same thing happens in the dream every time.
What's that?
So what happens is, me and my missus are like two peas in a pod, Shannon. Yeah, she's absolutely class. Don't tell her this because you got to keep them at a distance, and you're treating me and keep them keen, all that. Whatever I do in my life, I think to myself, I need to get Shannon in it at some point. So in this recurring dream, no matter what I tell myself, I obviously tell them about Shannon. I'm like, make sure you fucking get Shannon. And then I always fuck it up because I approach her in many different ways, try and pull her in many different ways, and she's a right stubborn fucker. She's an hard bird to pull, I tell you. I just can't pull her again. So no matter what I do, no matter what I tell my younger self, the goal is to try and get my missus back. But it never seems to work out in the dream, and I wake up and I'm in a mood of it for the first half hour of the morning. So there you go.
Dude, we've all been there. Like, you wake up and you just like had a nightmare that like your missus has been cheating on you. You just roll over and you're like, you motherfucker, I could kill you right now. And they're like,
yeah,
good morning, like, how are you doing? And you're like, don't even speak to me. You cheated on me in my dream, you bitch.
She's like, what are you dreaming of? I'm like, you're a fucking cunt. You wouldn't let me pull you. I couldn't pull you. And I'm like, this time I was too young because she's actually 9 years younger than me. So I was a little bit noncy. She was only 17 and I was like 25 or whatever. So I'm like, obviously I can't get her at like 15, 16. So I kind of wait. I've got to wait. I'm like a bit creepy, like watching her a bit, at the park and stuff. And then I'm like, fuck me, I'm a proper nonce here. I need to stop watching her. So then I've got to wait till she's 17, and then I'm like, right, I can creep on her a bit now because it's more, it's more acceptable. But it's really hard to get her because unless I'd lived the life I'd lived, I don't think I'd have pulled her because I was a bit of a player knobhead back at the day, and I pulled her. But when I give myself this information on this little young nice guy who wants to get my life on track and whatnot, she don't give a shit. She's like, fuck off. So yeah. Random recurring dream for you.
I love that. That is so random. I absolutely love that. Amazing. Man, thank you so much for this. Like, 100% we're going to do this again because I've got like thousands of different points that we could talk about, and you literally can talk 4 days. Literally.
It's me. Apparently, I've got a bit of a gift for chatting shit because Joe Sco is the guy who films for Giant Sliver. He films all the athlete interviews and stuff. And usually he says that he has to do about 20 takes with everyone. And he's got to tell him, and he's got to try and plug him. And he said, I'm the opposite. Like, he just says a subject and puts a camera on me, and he doesn't even have to edit it because he's like, you don't even breathe. I'm like, I don't know how. I just speak and for like an hour. And then he's like, will you please stop speaking? And I'm like, well, okay, I'll stop now. But I can keep going if you want. Like, if there's more information.
Yeah, but dude, it's just raw passion, and that's what I love. That's what I absolutely love about everything that you put out there is that it just comes from a point of passion. And man, just like keep it up. Like the world needs more of that shit right now. Do you know what I mean? So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for what you're putting out there. And man, thank you for coming on the show, man, because it's been fucking awesome chatting, dude. Really, really, really has.
Yeah, thanks very much. I didn't know what the hell we were going to chat about, what it was going to be, but I really enjoyed it. It was fun. Thank you.